When I begin an intake session for the Sons of Helaman program, for this training I'm going to assume that we're dealing with a young man who's under 18 or pre-mission, and his parents are going to be with him. And one of the important goals of that session is to, as we learned in the Missionary Training Center, we are trying to build a relationship of trust between ourselves as a clinician, our program, and this family. The young man, mother, father, each one of the three people that enter our room have different questions and concerns. The young man is usually nervous and embarrassed and would really not be there. One of the comical ways I try to build a relationship with him right off the bat is to ask a question like, are you here by choice or were you forced? I also ask him if he'd rather be at the dentist office than here in my office, hoping to lighten things up. Mothers are a very important person in the room to build a relationship with. She's very nervous as well. This is her son. He's possibly entering a program that is going to be dealing with sexual issues. She's unfamiliar with male sexuality to begin with. It's all rather confusing for her. So as you go through your presentation, make sure you spend time addressing her directly, making sure that she has a chance to have all her questions answered. The father is often there to some degree reluctantly, because many men in our culture just assume that the problem is going to go away, that it's really not that bad. Other fathers are very emotionally dedicated to the process, and some of them are even heavy-handed about the whole experience and want to thump on their kid to get him to behave well. In most cases, all three people misunderstand the nature of the addictive behavior, and so one of our main goals is to educate the family while they're in this office. One of the first things I do is introduce myself, give some background about who I am and where I come from. Usually this takes less than 60 seconds. You don't want to spend a lot of time on that subject, but keep checking eye contact with all three participants to make sure they're getting the information that they need. And then I open it up to questions to see if they have anything they'd like to know further. Then I kind of shift the dynamic in an unexpected way, trying to create a positive experience that was not what the young man had in mind. And I asked the parents to start listing out the strengths of the young man. This is vitally important for a couple reasons. One, the young man is expecting to only hear negative about himself, and so he's expecting it to be a very unpleasant experience. Mothers and fathers, especially mothers, are very quick to start listing out the strengths of the young man. I will grab a clipboard and I'll start listing out these strengths. I need to know what his strengths are as well, because if I'm working with a musician, there are certain things as a clinician I can build upon if I'm working with a musician. Like later on I'll discuss drills and repetition and drills and repetition. Also, musicians have a tendency to be able to feel things a little more accurately than others because they've learned how to feel their music. Sometimes I'll even ask the young man, if he's a musician, do you know how to feel your music? And that gives me an idea of his spiritual sensitivities. If the family describes him as an athlete and that he has athletic skills, athletes have another set of advantages. Athletes, if they've taken their sport seriously, often are very self-disciplined. They can handle pain. They know how to do hard things. They can get it done. Get told what they can follow through on what they're told to do. And so I want to find out if he's got a music background, athletic background, and then academic background. That, as you already know, comes with its own strengths: discipline to study, the intelligence to learn, etc. Other things that family members will share are creativity, relationships with parents and siblings, pros and cons there, and relationships with others. I invite you as a clinician to do a pretty thorough assessment. It shouldn't take more than about 10 minutes to really get the parents describing the young man, and we want him to be almost on the verge of blushing because they've said so many positive things about him. Um, this is the first stage of the intake session. There are three primary stages of the intake session. First one being that build relationships of trust session. Once I've got a good hold on what his strengths are, what he's good at, I usually invite the parents to leave the room as I gather information on the degree of complexity to his misbehaviors. Young men are more likely to tell the truth when their parents aren't in the room, and it gives me a chance to do a little male bonding without the parents there. If the parents have not already followed through on the intake paperwork, then I have them do that while waiting in the waiting room. So as I'm working with him specifically, I will ask him a series of questions that you should have listed in your intake packet. They include some of the following. I introduce him to Mr. M and Mr. P. Make sure he knows what both of those mean and find out if he has any other morality issues with the young women. Also, if there's any type of same-sex attraction issues, this is a vital time to find out about that. I usually throw that in near the end, the questions about that, to make sure we have a relationship where he could actually tell me the truth. So I ask him questions like, at what age were you first exposed to Mr. M or Mr. P? Did it become regular right off the bat? How old were you when it became regular? I also ask, along with the first question, did you learn about it yourself or did someone show you? We need to know if he's been participating with other people, same sex or opposite sex, and how far back that goes. Find out at what age was it the most, was it at its worst? I like to know what's the longest you've gone without it since then, so it gives me an idea of what his capabilities are. I like to find out what the pattern has been for the last 3 months. Is it steady? Does it go in clusters? How many days does he go without the problem? How many days does he go with the problem? Until I feel like I have a really thorough. I also, when I'm discussing pornography, I will ask what types of pornography. Like, are you seeing still shots, videos, live cam? It's really important to find that out. And then, do you have one person, two people, more than two people in the pictures and videos that you see? Is there any blood, violence, children, death, etc., etc.? That's when I usually throw in the, do you have a tendency to view same-sex stuff or opposite-sex stuff? You got to really feel like you're being thorough, and then I try to build the relationship as I'm asking the questions, so that when I ask the final question, is there anything else about your experience with this stuff that you haven't told me about? Anything else that I need to know? Anything else in your life in general that'd be weird, so that I don't have any things that sneak up on me? Anyway, make sure you're broad and thorough with that. That can take anywhere between 10 and 20 minutes. And then I invite the parents back in. I ask the young man, do your parents already know all this? If they say yes, that's good. If they say no, then we make a decision based on how much to reveal to the parents. I then go into the training session on exactly what causes the misbehaviors. And I will address that in a separate video.